Okay, so we should be good here in just a moment. Yes, we're live there. And I am very pleased to have with me a special guest today. Yeah, this is the fun part. It's wow, it even fails on a remote location. But we're here in beautiful, oh man, we had it all set, Brandon. Okay, here we go.
About it, right?
There we go. We've got it all set. We're here in beautiful Madison Square Park. We've got The Godfather playing over there.
It's like a funeral song. Yeah, it's
my guest is Brandon Straka. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, and I would be shaking your hand, except my plan for doing this interview, you're of course the founder of #WalkAway,
right?
And I wanted us to be walking around, but in my busy day this is the fourth show I've done today. I forgot to bring the stabilizer. I'm kind of known for having a video stabilizer when we do these interviews, but you've done something incredibly bold. You are, by all measures, someone most people would consider a liberal, someone who would be on the left, and you were.
I was.
For most of your life.
Yes.
But for some reason, you left. You chose to walk away.
Several reasons.
Well, tell us what those reasons are.
Well, I left liberalism because of the identity politics and political correctness, and I mean, I just found as time was going by, things were becoming more and more sort of oppressive and divisive. The ways in which I felt like liberals themselves were becoming more racist. I mean, I felt like I was starting to see their inherent racism and their inherent sexism, and you know, the hatred of white people and the hatred of men, and it just started to get kind of like really weird and bogus and uncomfortable. But it was really after the election of Donald Trump that I started to see clearly what the liberal media was doing, what the Democratic Party was doing, how it's the machinery of it all, how they sort of work in tandem. And as a gay man myself, it was really, it became very clear to me the way that they manipulate our communities.
Well, let me take you back for a second.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in New York?
No, I grew up in Nebraska.
Nebraska?
Yeah.
Wow. What was it like?
Cattle ranch.
What was it like being gay in Nebraska?
Oh, it was super fun.
I can only imagine. Yeah, you don't sound like you're from New York. So
yeah.
How old were you when you moved out of Nebraska?
22.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so were you even able to be openly gay in Nebraska, or was it?
Well, not when I was growing up. Not like when I was in high school.
When did you know that you were gay?
When I was like 5.
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was watching Friday night videos, and I had a crush on one of the singers from Tears for Fears. So
Oh, they're
that's
good
how I
band.
figured it out. Yeah.
And so, okay. So you realized you were gay, and obviously Nebraska, unless you want to get like dragged around by a pickup truck, you don't want too many people to know about that.
Right.
So you were basically living a pretty oppressive life through your teenage years. Did you go to the high school prom with a girl?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
And did she know you were gay?
She did not know I was gay, but I did have a couple of friends that I was close to who were girls. And they knew. I told them. They were, I think, the only 2 people that I told when I was in high school, and they were kind of cool and kept my secret. Yeah. And then, but they, you know, they were out living their lives. These were pretty girls. They were dating guys, you know, stuff. So they, actually, one of them was my date for one of the proms. But no, I usually would take other girls who were just sort of like in the periphery, and they didn't know. They were just kind of, you know, they were my beard.
Were you romantic with them?
No.
But you were young. It was high school. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you realized you were gay, and then did you decide you had to leave Nebraska, or how did that? You went to college. What was the?
Yeah, these are actually great questions because it all sort of informs what happened.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the decisions that I made in my early adulthood were based off of literally just trying to get the hell out of Dodge and get out of Nebraska. I left home less than 2 weeks after I graduated from high school. And my goal was just to come to New York City. I was just literally going to leave the farm and go to New York.
Did your parents know you were gay?
I told them when I was 19.
How'd they
so
react?
They didn't know when I graduated. What?
How did they react?
They were supportive, but it was, you know, it was like that sort of typical experience where my mom was crying and, you know, like, we love you and this doesn't change the way that we feel about you.
But yet we're crying.
They were crying, but they were crying, yeah. And You know, and I think that they were worried. I mean, this was like also at a time when like everyone was dying of AIDS, you know, and stuff too. And that's like, this isn't exactly
How old are you?
uplifting. You cannot ask a gay man his age. It's a hate crime. This is what it's, yes.
Because you're saying
Well, you can do the math. I mean,
yes, you're saying things that make me think you're older than you look.
I am older, I think, than I look. No, I'm 41.
Wow. All right. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Thanks.
So, okay. So your parents have accepted. You still have a good relationship with them now, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Good.
Very good relationship now.
Good. And now you're in New York where you can be free to live your life as you choose.
Yes.
And there's a lot less pressure, I would think, than in Nebraska.
Yeah, and that's sort of why I came here. I mean, I was always somebody who kind of wanted to, I never ever wanted to feel oppressed, ever. I always wanted to, I've always sort of had a fire in me and sort of a drive and a mission sort of in a way, and I wanted to be somewhere where I didn't have to feel stifled or stymied and I could just do what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I felt like that was never going to happen in Nebraska. People are always going to say, you need to act like this, you need to be like this, stop doing that. I don't want to be around that energy.
Right. I've been to Nebraska, actually. I was driving from Los Angeles to New York, and I stopped in Nebraska to, just along the way. It was a long drive. But I can't say Omaha, I guess.
Omaha's fun. I like Omaha.
Yeah, I just was there for one night. I calculated the trip so I could basically stop at like farm-to-table restaurants and hotels that had gyms, because I was like an astronaut in the van driving all day. I needed to hit the bike every morning to not completely atrophy. This dude with the trumpet is going totally nuts. But So, okay, back to your story.
Sure.
So you're in New York.
Yes.
You're in the basically liberal den of, so now you're in really a strong gay community that has its own sort of influence over you, I would presume. Right?
Sure.
And what was that like?
Well, that's interesting too, because I never really felt like I belonged in the gay community. I wanted to. And I mean, it's probably it is, I think, a personality flaw, but I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be popular.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and I felt like I was like, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Because I would see all of these people in the gay community who were so revered, kind of, and so popular, and I always was just like, why do they like this person? And why am I not, because it's again, now I can see so clearly, it's the groupthink. And I think even within groupthink, there are leaders who lead the groupthink.
Right.
But I've always been someone who, like, one of the first things I noticed when I came to New York and I got involved in the gay community, was sort of the vernacular. Like, they have their own language, they have their own words, and they're like, whatever. And I was like, I don't want to say that. Like, I don't want to do that with my arm, and I don't want to do that with my voice. And I never did it. And I think that they pick up on stuff like that. I think that they pick up on like, oh, he's not really participating.
Huh.
Do you know what I mean? And so I don't think that I had some friends, individuals who were, gay, and I've always had a sprinkling of gay friends, but I've never been universally popular in the gay community at all.
So would you say a lot of your friends are straight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they mostly on the right politically, or more conservative, liberal? What would you say?
No, they were liberals.
They were liberals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to bear in mind, this transition with me happened in 2017. So it's
all new.
It's all new. Yeah. Now I actually have conservative friends, and ironically, a lot of them are gay, and they do like me.
But you're sort of, in a weird way, kind of back to where you were in Nebraska, or at least you would think that, because conservatives are generally people who have traditionally at least been anti-gay, right?
Okay.
I mean, isn't that true?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think that was true.
It's changing now, for sure.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
But, so when you were sort of first arriving in New York and in this liberal community, you didn't quite fit in, and it wasn't just about sexuality. It was about your whole way you see yourself.
Right.
What do you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, when I first moved to New York, I just came straight from Nebraska, so I didn't go to school or anything. I don't have any education after 12th grade, other than I went to hair school later. But
is that the industry you're in?
Yeah, so I ended up going to hair school, but that was just like 3 or 4 years ago. So I worked in the bar and restaurant industry for a lot of years because I came to New York. I wanted to be an actor and a singer. I think it was about escapism. You know what I mean? Like, I really wanted to come. I think, and that's why there's so many gay people, I think, in the industry, is because it's all about escapism, wanting to be a character that people will like and treat you favorably because they don't really like you in your real life, I think. I think that's why a lot of gay people are drawn to that.
Well, and I think there are a lot of people who have a similar story to you, who are growing up in places where maybe being gay is not accepted, and so they feel like outcasts their whole life. And then there's something of like a celebration when you come to a place like New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles, where nobody minds that you're gay and you can really be yourself.
Right.
So this is a bit of a weird thing that you're in that community and still not feeling like you can be yourself.
Right, that's exactly right. And then I did sort of fall in with a crowd of straight, liberal New Yorkers who were ironically all Ivy League educated. I mean, I would consider to be kind of intellectuals. And what's so interesting about that is we would often spend these late nights. Like we'd go out, we'd party together, we'd have the after party, and we would end up inevitably talking about politics back at somebody's apartment. And it would always be a group of like 8 to 10 of us. I was always the only gay one, and I was the only one who wasn't college educated, and they were all Ivy League educated. But I would listen to them talk about politics, and it's just so interesting in retrospect how they would say so many things. And I would sit there and I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense.
Like what? Give us an example of
Okay,
that.
there's this example that I love. So I have this friend, this girl, she's an attorney. She gets paid to think for a living and reason. And
by the hour, by the way.
Quite well. She's doing very well. But we would, so this topic came up several times. We'd be sitting around a coffee table talking, and she would say, she's white, by the way.
Right.
She would say, you know, let me think this through.
Sure.
So she would talk about how cocaine was a white people drug, and how crack was a black people drug because of the cost difference. That, you know, cocaine was like an elite kind of expensive drug that white people would do, and crack was, you know, a cheap drug. So that's why it would infiltrate, you know, these poor black communities. So she was talking about how the legal penalties for using crack cocaine were much more stiff.
That's true.
It is true. But she was saying how this was very, very racist. And she was saying that this was an example of racism within the legal system, you know, the systemic racism. And so I'm listening to this, and I'm kind of thinking it through, and I remember very specifically saying, well, what if they just didn't do crack? And everybody kind of looked up at me like, what? And I was like, well, if the penalties are stiffer for using crack, and everyone knows this, what if that was just an incentive just not to do crack? And everyone was like, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. They're like, it's racist. You're not getting it. It's racist. And I'm like, well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But I was like, I'm just sitting here thinking, if I'm a member of this community that is being targeted in this way, what if I just didn't do crack and instead did something else with my life and use it as an incentive to better myself? You're not getting it. You're not getting it. You're like, you're right. I'm not getting it. And the truth is, back then, I would walk away from those experiences, and I would think, I'm really not getting it because these guys are smart. These guys went to Ivy League school. I didn't even go to school. So I'm like, I'm not getting it. And now, I mean, after my conversion, whatever, I'm like, you know what? It's because I didn't go to school. I've not been indoctrinated.
Exactly.
I was actually able, I think, to get out of the liberal ideology because I've never been indoctrinated at that level. Because what I've discovered is the more educated a liberal is, the more indoctrinated they are. I mean,
You're right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I see this all the time. And that particular friend, I mean, I love her. I don't want to sit here and speak negatively about her in an interview, but I don't think she could ever be pulled out of it. I don't think you could ever explain to her why what she believes is so illogical, even from a fact-based perspective. If we sat down and looked at statistical data about, you know, crime and I think she would just say, no, racism, white people are terrible, white people are terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a bit about how you kind of crossed over. So, what's the first presidential election that you can remember voting?
Well, I voted for Gore.
Okay, so 2000. Was that the first
Right.
one?
That's probably, 90. I don't think I voted in 96.
Right. I voted for Al Gore as well. I mean, I didn't think that George W. Bush was a competent man or a good president at all.
Right.
But I've never really identified as a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative. I just sort of look at the person and try to make an evaluation. But people who watch Crowdsource the Truth will lament the fact that I also voted for Barack Obama because I thought change sounded great.
Right.
And definitely didn't like Hillary Clinton, and I didn't like John McCain.
Right.
I didn't like Mitt Romney. It was like two different flavors of what they got going over there in the dog run. So, I think it was a big mistake. Do you remember who you voted for in the? Did you vote for Obama?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is very simple. I always voted Democrat.
Wow.
Because I'm gay. I mean, that was like I didn't even know. I don't think I even knew what Bush or Gore stood for. I literally
just convinced you that you're gay. You need to be a Democrat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that stuck.
And I would always just like straight down the ticket. D,
Wow.
D.
Because
and
you were told that Republicans were conservatives, they're racists,
right. Homophobic,
homophobic Nazis,
yeah.
and all this.
Right.
Huh.
Well, and it's back then too. It's like as gay people, we were always a wedge issue at that time too. I mean, in some form, I feel like our rights or our existence somehow ended up on that ballot. Right. So I mean, that's really what I was going to sort of vote to combat whatever it was that I felt like the Republicans were going to do to us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so was it before the election or after the election that this change happened in you?
The 2016
Did you
election.
vote for Hillary? Or?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, a lot of people know, too, I was, like, crying on social media after the election.
So what was it that triggered the change?
Well, okay, so, as you know, I don't need to tell anyone, I mean, it was like all hell broke loose. I mean, it's just like everybody started going crazy. We were
continues to go crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it's getting worse. Yeah,
yes.
but it was like immediately after the election. I mean, literally immediately after the election. I was laying in my bed. You're an East Coaster, so I mean, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I think they still hadn't called it. So I decided, but things were looking bad. So I got to bed and I couldn't sleep, so I kept like checking my phone.
Things were looking good. They
were
looking bad for Hillary.
They were looking bad for me at that time. Right. So I was in bed, and I remember I rolled over at some hour in the middle of the night, and I checked the Huffington Post because I wanted the truth. I wanted to know the truth.
New York Times.
Yeah. Right. I needed a big dose of truth. So I opened the Huffington Post, and the headline finally read in all red, gigantic letters, "Nightmare, President Trump." And it had a picture of him, and then under the picture it said, "Millions to lose their health insurance, like minority rights to be rolled back, blah, blah, blah." And it listed like 4 or 5 things, and then it said ... and other possible headlines from a Trump presidency. Now, at the time, it just scared me. It did its job. It was effective. Right. It scared the hell out of me. Right. Now I look back at that and I'm like, they were predicting headlines of what might happen in a Trump presidency. I mean, how unbelievably irresponsible and unethical is that? But it did its job and it scared me. And then it was like immediately after that, they started rolling out the stories about the swastikas being spray painted all over buildings, and the numbers in the KKK spiking, and hate crime numbers spiking, and no one was safe. And then they started doing the
Russian bots.
Then they started doing the stories constantly about how that he was going to sign executive orders repealing our civil rights, and that, oh, well, it didn't happen today. It was supposed to happen today, but he got distracted by some other hate mongering, and it's going to happen tomorrow, but it didn't happen tomorrow because Putin told him to wait. And it's just like we were constantly like, but it kept getting delayed, and I started noticing this. I started being like, they keep saying all this really, really terrible. Am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, okay. Say whatever you want.
Terrible shit was going to happen, and it didn't happen. It would never happen. And then I started noticing that. Mm-hmm. And then I started kind of just asking friends of mine and stuff. I was like, why do they keep saying all this stuff's going to happen and then it doesn't happen? So, and I was asked, because I have a couple friends who are conservative. I have my closest friend in the world. He's always been a gay conservative. And he was just kind of being like, you are being so stupid, and stuff. And I was like, no, this is terrible. But he was just like, are you getting it? Are you getting it? And I was like, well, no, I'm not willing to admit that they're not being honest. I'm just like, I'm getting confused. But I was still going on social media and I was ranting and I was raving, and like, how could you do this? People of Nebraska, people of Mid-America, how could you do this? And a lot of people have heard this story a lot, but it's kind of the turning point for me was this woman who was my babysitter. Her name was Diane, and one of my rants was about the disabled. How could you vote for somebody who mocked a disabled reporter in front of a crowd of cheering people? And she reached out to me and she's like, look, have you seen this? I'm just asking you, have you seen this? She sent me a video that was a YouTube video debunking that Trump mocked the disabled reporter.
Yes.
You know it.
I do, yeah.
Right. So it's a compilation of footage showing him doing that exact same voice and same gesture numerous times.
For 5 other people who aren't disabled. He never met the reporter. He spoke to him on the phone. He had no idea he had the disability.
Right, exactly. It was sort of like this bit that he does when he's imitating someone who's been caught in a lie.
Stupid,
or being shady. Or so, yeah. And so I watched it and I was like, what is going on? Like, what is happening right now? And I had this major disconnect between my heart and my brain, because I was like, my brain was saying like, oh my God, I don't think he mocked that guy's disability. And my heart was like, but we hate him, but we hate him, but we hate him. And I didn't understand. I literally couldn't even process it. So the next day I watched it again. And at that point, I was like, okay, I don't think he mocked this disabled reporter. So I went to friends of mine and I was like, what do you guys think about this? You know, and I don't think I posted on social media, but I was just kind of sending it around, and people were like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
You're pro-Trump.
Yeah, what are you doing? I started getting it. Like, what, do you love Trump now and stuff? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't love Trump. But I was like, I'm just trying to, why would the news do this?
Yes.
Like, why? Because they don't, CNN does not lie. Like, why did they lie on this day? I don't understand. What went wrong? And I started, like, people started getting really, really, like, I was getting a lot of pushback. They were getting kind of hostile with me, and I could feel the contempt.
You were experiencing their cognitive dissonance.
Yes. Yeah. And it started triggering in me that feeling again of like of being gay, like from years ago before, where it was like
being an outcast within the gay community.
Yes. Well, no, just being an outcast, period. I mean, like,
Nebraska.
Yeah, like feeling like I had to be closeted.
Right.
Exactly. And so I responded to that feedback that I was getting, and by kind of shutting down. And what I did instead was, it was freaking me out. Like, I couldn't understand. I was like, something is wrong. Something is very wrong, but I can't figure out what it is. And so I started getting in bed at night because I didn't feel safe talking to other people, and I didn't feel safe talking to friends, and I would get in bed and just start researching, like getting on YouTube and reading things. And the more I researched and the more I started finding these videos of like Trump rallies where black people would come to support him.
And they get yelled at by other black people.
Or they would get cut out of the shot by CNN. Like CNN would see them and then reframe the shot so that so it's like
so
they didn't
all
exist.
White. Yes.
Yes. And I started seeing all of the things that were taken out of context. You know, how he would speak glowingly about the country of Mexico and the people of Mexico, for 15 minutes.
Yeah, but they cut that out.
And then they cut that out. And then they take the part where he's talking about like the Mexican government releasing criminals and sending them over the border. And they're like, he's calling all Mexicans rapists, and he's calling all Mexicans, like, and that didn't happen. Like, I started to see how the media would, what I basically discovered was that, I'll just lay it out there. What I eventually figured out was that the media kind of sat down and they formed a plan. Yes. They said, what is it? How do we make sure that this guy, because they saw him picking up momentum. They saw, at first they treated him like a joke, and then it's like suddenly it wasn't funny anymore because his numbers were going up and up and up. Right. They're like, how are we going to crush this guy? Yeah. And they figured, well, what triggers liberals more than anything? Social injustice. We need to make this guy the most racist, bigoted, homophobic, most intolerable Nazi, Hitler, second coming of Hitler, And then I think that they thought it would even work with the right, the base on the right. Right. They thought if we paint this guy as the second coming of Hitler,
everybody will.
We'll shame people into
Jewish people on the right, anybody.
We'll make it so shameful to support him that we'll just crush any. Of course, it didn't work. Right. But what they did then was that they went out and they, with that narrative in mind, and they would sit there and they'd listen to him give an amazing speech for 2 hours, going, okay, give us the moment, okay, saying the word Mexicans, oh, great. And they would take like 10 seconds, and they would cut it so it would look like he was saying something awful and atrocious about Mexicans or black people or gay people or whatever. And idiots like myself at the time.
Well, you don't be so hard on yourself, because from what I'm hearing, it sounds to me like, you were basically picking up what was being put down forever.
Right.
And when you finally came to realize on your own, which is very impressive, by the way, most people don't do that, you started to look for better answers. Now, let me ask you this. You don't strike me as the kind of guy, you're on the start of a journey.
Yes.
So, when it comes to things like 9/11 or the JFK assassination or the Las Vegas shooting, what do you think about those things and how the media represented those things?
Okay, so like any sort of controversy that might...
Let's say 9/11.
Surround how it all went.
Do you believe that it happened the way they told us with... Oh, what happened? We've frozen up on the picture here for some reason. That's strange. Let me see if I can get that back for us. Why did it do that? Some technical problems from time to time, Brandon. Give me just a second and we'll get it back here.
No worries.
So let's just talk for a second about how you might feel about 9/11, for instance. How did you react to news reporting on 9/11? Do you think that it was just 19 guys who got onto planes and it happened the way they tell us, or do you think something more is going on there?
Are we on?
Well, we're going to have to switch to this because something happened with that camera. So here we go. Keep going.
Yeah, I believe that. I think 9/11 happened the way that...
You do?
I do.
Okay.
Is there something I should be reading?
Well, I think that, like I just said, you're at the start of a journey that might shock you even more than you've already been shocked. I don't personally believe that the media just suddenly got together and decided they were going to destroy Donald Trump. I believe there is an agenda that is driven by people who have quite a lot to gain by destroying Donald Trump. And for instance, have you ever heard of something called Operation Mockingbird?
Yes.
Okay. So you know that it was revealed in the 1970s that the CIA had a plan to control the news and to insert important people at CBS and ABC and the New York Times and the Washington Post so that the CIA could put out stories and those would be broadcast over the mass media. And that's still going on today. Kevin Shipp is a prominent author and an ex-CIA agent who I've interviewed many times, and I do a regular show actually on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern called The Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp that people can see on patreon.com/crowdsource.
Great plug.
And Kevin tells us that Operation Mockingbird is still happening today. I've been actually quite aggressive about identifying individuals and groups that are attempting to infiltrate social media. And like you're saying, when that meme of Donald Trump imitating or mocking a disabled guy, how did that get there? Someone put that there. That's a planned, executed event. And in a similar fashion, I personally believe that there's a lot more to September 11th than what we've heard, and that prominent members of our government could have easily been involved. There was a 28-page report, not from Alex Jones, not from Jason Goodman, from the Senate Intelligence Committee that was suppressed for 15 years, that implicated 3 Saudi Arabian diplomats as sending over $100,000 to the 19 alleged hijackers, co-signing for apartments that they lived in. We never heard about any of that on CNN.
So you do at least believe that there were the hijackers, and that's, because there are people who talk about like missiles and explosives.
I do not think that a commercial airliner could have penetrated the hardened walls of the Pentagon in the way that we saw.
Really?
I don't think it's possible. And I think when you start to examine the evidence, I've looked at a number of airline crashes. I used to watch every episode of a show called Air Crash Investigations, that in tremendous detail examines hundreds, literally, of different air crashes. Not a one of them ever disintegrates the jet. Where is the jet? Let me ask you this. How many videos and photographs have you seen of airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center? Dozens.
Yeah. I thought you meant other airplanes.
Have you seen
not a lot.
Even one photograph of an airplane anywhere near the Pentagon?
No. I mean, as far as I know, there's the security camera footage of
4 frames of a flash
right
hitting it.
There
Where's
are
the plane?
eyewitnesses. There were people who were driving down the highway who say
They saw a plane, yes.
Yes.
But no one saw a plane hit it.
Where do you think the plane went?
I think it flew over the building and fired a missile at it.
Okay.
And I think that the damage to the Pentagon, whoop, sorry. Yeah, I should have brought the stabilizer. I think the damage to the Pentagon is not the type of damage you would expect from an aluminum jet. I think the strongest part of the jet, with the most mass and generating the most force when it strikes the building, would be the engines. And we see that in the elliptical holes in the World Trade Center. But there's just a circular hole in the Pentagon. Did you know that every member of a naval intelligence forensic accounting team that was investigating something like $4 trillion missing dollars from the Pentagon budget was killed on that day in the Pentagon?
I did not.
There's a lot of things that people don't know.
Okay.
Because this corporate-owned, advertiser-driven, multi-million-dollar news media that we've all been, as you said, indoctrinated by, they don't care about Brandon. They don't care about Jason. They want you to buy pills from Pfizer and Merck, and they want you to buy gas from Mobil and cars from Ford, and they're getting ads on the Super Bowl from Lockheed Martin and McDonnell Douglas and Boeing. Are you in the market, Brandon, for an F-35 fighter airplane?
I think I might be like in 6 months.
Right.
I just have to kind of shuffle some finances
What can I do to get you into an F-35 today? Point is, why are they advertising that on television? Is it because they think the people watching the Super Bowl are going to make a decision about how they're going to fly to Nebraska based on a Boeing ad, or are they going to do that based on who's got the best time and the lowest ticket price? It's so that they can funnel money to CNN and NBC. And when a story comes out about Boeing missiles or about, Northrop Grumman bombs going to Saudi Arabia to destroy people in Yemen, they don't want you to talk about that. They want to talk about how Hillary Clinton should be president, not Donald Trump. So I think you've started on a journey that is a much, much bigger journey. And I got to tell you something. We've just met, but I'm incredibly proud of you that you were able to see this by yourself, because it doesn't matter about going to college or not going to college.
Right.
It's like when you can be an independent thinker to the extent that you can open your eyes to this astounding bullshit that we are all being fed, then you become a leader. So talk to us a little bit about that. What's your experience been like since this has started? You've been all over the news and everywhere.
I have before, but I want to say one thing quickly about what you were just saying. One thing that's really changed in me since I became a liberal, and it's really an astounding change, and one that I think is so important.
Careful, that's broken.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I know, because I almost fell down. Is when I was a liberal, and I think this is true of many liberals, there's an unwillingness to listen or consider any information that falls outside of their current belief system or their current ideology. So for instance, even what you were just saying to me right now, I know that in my former day, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, tinfoil hat, oh, shut up. I probably would have just stopped listening. I have no problem now listening to people express any theory that they may have about anything or any piece of information that they might like me to know. And then it's up to me to decide what sounds right about that, what sounds wrong about that, what can I research about that, how can I find out more for myself, and decide for myself where the truth lies in any of that. It doesn't make me the least bit uncomfortable to listen to anything anybody has to say.
Huge step.
It is a huge step. And let's face it, some of the stuff that people say is crazy. I mean, I have people, because I'm doing public speaking stuff now, and I do have people come up to me afterwards and they want to tell me all about, the aliens and the thing, and I sit there and I just kind of let them have their moment and they say it, whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'll look into that. I'll be sure to Google that when I get home, But it's like, that doesn't hurt me to hear what other people's ideas are, what they think, no matter what they are.
But if I'm understanding you correctly, you now realize that your eyes have been opened to a truth that once seemed so absurd to you.
Right.
That you've had this kind of realization that there is a possibility that maybe almost anything could be true.
That's true, because I used to think Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton were really good people who wanted, only wanted good things for American people and for the, a progressive future that was going to be very diverse and inclusive and looking out for the good of all people. And so I would hear people over the years criticize them, and I think, I could see how easy it was for other liberals to be like, oh, well, they hate black people. Oh, well, they hate women. Right. That's just sort of how you shut that down instantaneously. But now, and even early in my conversion, it was very difficult. It's almost like someone coming to you, I feel so bad saying this, but it's almost like somebody coming to you and saying something negative about your parents, and you're like, my mom would never do that, my dad would never do that. But it's like you get to this point where you're like, well, maybe that could happen. Maybe that could, it's like a slow process of relinquishing, that, grabbing onto that idea that they're so good, that they're they uphold almost the ideal of goodness. And it's, maybe it's possible they don't. Maybe it's possible that Barack Obama actually was involved in a lot of corruption. And Hillary Clinton is involved in a lot of corruption. I mean, maybe that's possible. And so now my eyes are open, and I am absolutely willing to investigate that, and find out where the truth lies.
That's an incredibly powerful position for yourself to be in. But as you're pointing out, you may open yourself to quite a lot of ridicule. Now, I want to ask you something. You look like an unusually healthy guy.
Thanks.
What's your diet like? Are you a vegan or a vegetarian or anything like that?
No, I do try to eat very healthily.
Organic food and stuff like that?
I try to eat just sort of like natural whole food, salads, grilled chicken,
You're not drinking a lot of booze?
Well, I'm almost 4 years sober.
There you go.
Yeah, so I had a big problem with alcohol and cocaine for a lot of years.
Okay.
And I got sober on January 18th, 2015. And through a 12-step program, I have a sponsor. So that's a big part of it.
Congratulations. That's another huge... So I'm asking this because I'm curious to know if clearing your body physically, if you feel that's helped you clear your mind mentally.
Absolutely. Definitely. But it's also through a 12-step program, you learn the tools of life of accountability, taking responsibility for your actions, making amends and making up for your wrongdoing, and leading a life of rigorous honesty, and again, that word accountability. And I have an amazing sponsor who has been like, he's provided amazing leadership for me and an amazing ideal of the kind of person that I want to be. So through following those these steps, I started to see the benefit of no longer blaming other people for the things that had gone wrong in my life, taking accountability and taking action and creating the life that I wanted for myself. Stop, putting a halt to feeling sorry for myself and feeling self-pity, and instead taking action. I really started to see these principles and how they benefit. Like when you stop blaming others and you just take action, you actually start to get the things that you want in life, and these are conservative values. These are conservative principles. I mean, it's not about like, you have something that I want and I don't have it, that's not fair. So let's even this out so we all have the same thing. I mean, like that's social. I mean, the liberal principles, I can see so much now how clearly identity politics and socialism go hand in hand. They totally do. Because it's all about, you have something that I want. It's not fair that I don't have it. I should get it. I deserve it. So you need to give it to me. I mean, that's sort of how liberalism and identity politics works.
Yeah.
Whereas conservative values and what I've discovered through my own sobriety and the steps that I've taken in my life in my sobriety, it's really about, we all start on different pages. My sponsor says all the time, compare and despair. You can't spend your life comparing someone else's starting point to your starting point. We all have different starting points. Another thing he says is, don't compare your start to someone else's middle. You don't know where that person started. You don't know what they've been through. You have no idea. We all have a different journey. Keep your nose out of other people's business. Just focus on your own path and your own life. And imagine the life that you want and take the steps to get it. These are conservative principles, you know, and I really discovered this in action and the benefits of this in my sobriety. I didn't know at the time. It's kind of, between you and I'm going to piss so many people off by saying this. I don't get how any sober person can be a liberal. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how anybody in a 12-step program can be a liberal. It doesn't make any sense. But so many people are going to be mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth.
I think a lot of people are going to be proud of you, Brandon. I mean, you've really made a lot of strides in your life. I mean, I've tried actually explicitly to not listen to a lot of your interviews because you and I were in touch pretty early on when you came onto the social media scene, but you've been so busy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to corrupt what we're going to talk about with, you know, asking all the same things, and I hope that I'm not asking a lot of the same things that other people have asked. But you've been on such a journey. I remember one of the things I did see you say was that people were accusing you of having this white privilege or gay privilege or something like that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It's not that long ago that you were like one of the most oppressed guys anywhere that you were.
Right.
And so you've made a huge journey in your life. You really should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. With the privilege thing, that was a huge part of me disconnecting from the liberal ideology, because once I started hearing that, and that started becoming like this common tenet sort of in the liberal ideology, you're like, oh, privilege, it's of course, like, don't even question it. That's, of course, this privilege. And it was after, in 2015, the Supreme Court decided, after a long battle, for, marriage equality was sort of like that was the big trophy that we were going for, I think. And when I say that, what I mean is that I think that, for me, that was the finish line. Once we were able to attain that as a right, and again, it's just literally about going to City Hall and signing a civil contract. It's like, we're not. I'm certainly not pushing for being able to go to the Catholic Church and say, you have to marry me now. We just literally wanted like that same civil right.
Are you Catholic?
I was Catholic when I was growing up. I'm not anymore. No.
Do you identify with any religion?
No, I don't. And I struggle still I even struggle with a higher power thing, even though that's like a crucial step in the 12 steps. I mean, of course,
my viewers are going to send you a million emails saying my viewers will send you a million emails saying the next step for you is to find God.
Oh my God, that's one thing. Okay. I love the response I get from people on the right, and the interactions I've had from conservatives have been amazing. Like, I absolutely love it. But one thing that's very hard to get used to is people praying over you. I get what I do.
It's nice. I mean, even if they pray to a God that's not a God that you identify with, it's nice to know that people care about you, and people are.
It is.
People who are very conservative are getting to a point where they can accept the differences, and maybe, the fact that we can sort of meet somewhere in the middle, I think, is a big step for everyone.
Right, but I think I think you're imagining the best case scenario.
Maybe.
I'm talking about the people who come up to you and get this close to your face and like put their and they're like, they do the, and I'm like, wow, okay, like, but it's, I know that it comes from a good place.
Right.
So it's,
I mean.
But I'm like, you're really close to me right now, and you're touching me, and okay. But where were we?
Well, just talking about this
privilege.
journey. Yes.
So, after the Supreme Court enacted marriage equality and decided it was the law of the land, I thought that we as a gay community had crossed this major finish line together. I thought that this was like a moment of celebration. My heart was just huge at that moment. I was like, wow, we did it. I thought we were, it was so soon after that happened that I started to see our community splintering and just completely being decimated from within. Because what happened next, and this is what, it started to become so clear to me, and when I say they, I mean the collective gay powers that be, these powers within the LGBT community that speak on our behalf, that make the decisions on our behalf, don't want us to ever not be victims. They always, I even call it the oppression industry. I mean, it's these groups that are like, send us donations, send us money. They need us to always be victims. So once we reach this major finish line of accomplishment that we've, as a community, really won this major cultural battle, what they did next was start dividing us from within. And it became black gay people are more oppressed than white gay people. And they started, we weren't even being called gay people anymore. Now we're queer people. What the hell does that mean? What is it? Well, a queer person. Well, but it's like, because they needed it to go beyond even sexuality. What's a queer person? Well, it's anybody who doesn't identify within the sexual norm. It could be somebody who, it doesn't make any sense. You know, now we have gender fluid and gender non-binary and two-spirit and all this, these ridiculous conditions that are some people are suddenly developing these new conditions that we didn't have in the past. Those, oh, we always had it. Really, I never heard of a non-binary person until just a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
But once they started developing all of these like new subgroups from within, then of course we end up with the privilege hierarchy. And if you are a white gay man, you are now privileged. But if you are a non-binary, black, trans, lesbian, you know, then we're at odds with each other from within the community. And this started happening right after marriage equality. And this is when I started hearing these terms, like, for instance, when they started using the term queer, and the Huffington Post made a big deal about it. They're like, from now on, we will be using the word queer when referring to this community. And they were saying that we are going to encourage other publications to use this term going forward to represent our community. I expressed objection. I said, you know, for those of us of a certain, perhaps, age and a certain geographical location, this is a term that we don't find endearing. In fact, for many of us, this is a term that we heard right before a fist came flying at our face. You know, and when I wrote that, because I actually posted this on Huffington Post social media, first of all, they got me banned for hate speech. They had my Facebook page shut down for hate speech. Oh boy! Because I objected as a gay man to being referred to as queer, and I had all of these people from within my community start attacking me and saying, "Well, of course you feel that way as a privileged white gay male. Oh boy! You don't have any idea what it's like to be a non-binary, you know, whatever." And I was like, This is insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolute insanity, and I'm now being turned on by my own community. And that was around the point where I started detaching. Not just because it was absurd, but because it was actually painful. I mean, it hurt me. I mean, I felt like...
Well, you're back in Nebraska, basically.
And I've been on the front lines for so many years, fighting side by side for gay rights with all these people, and now they're turning on me, and I was like, this is much more painful than when, you know, some little old... You know,
shit, this did the same thing again. Just hang on, let's switch. Sorry, keep going. We still have audio.
This is much more painful than when, you know, some religious fundamentalist from Iowa who doesn't know me or doesn't know any gay people are saying, like, I don't want those queers to have like, I can deal with that person.
That's somebody else. That's a guy who...
I can't deal with the people that I've been side by side with fighting in this community. Now you're turning on me. Like, that's so much more painful.
I agree.
And that's when I started really detaching.
Well, it's good to hear that you're feeling a sense of community in this new conservative movement. I mean, you're at the crest of a wave of a movement that you've started.
Right.
So tell me just a bit, because it looks like it's going to rain any second.
That's why I wore a hat.
It's very smart.
I'm not no fool.
So tell me how that's been for you. What's happened in your life since you walked away?
Right. Well, when I started the Walkaway campaign, which was on May 26th of this year, 2018, I had no way of knowing how people would respond to it or what would happen. The truth is, what I did was I sat down after having all these experiences, and as I said to you, I was trying to have conversations with liberal friends and living in a liberal city like just my fellow New Yorkers, and it was made very clear to me that I was not safe bringing these topics up to people unless I wanted to get, you know, a new asshole ripped to me by people or be cut off by my friends or cut off on social media, because that's what's happening.
I imagine you've lost friends.
A lot of friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, not even...
But you make new friends.
You do make new friends. I have made a lot of new friends, but I just got so tired of living in this state of anxiety about who was going to walk out next and who was going to cut me off or who was going to slander me on social media. So I decided to sit down and write this script about everything that I felt like was wrong about liberalism, everything that was wrong with the Democratic Party, and I was going to shoot a video and stick it out there so that everyone who wanted to walk out on me could just walk out in one fell swoop and just get the hell out. Like, then I know, once and for all, who are my friends and who aren't. I decided to make it a campaign because I was like, I know I'm not the only person who's feeling this way. I know it. And so I decided to open it up and do a video testimonial campaign.
I saw that.
Encourage other people to tell their stories. Why are you feeling fed up? Why are you ready to walk away? I mean, we see how dishonest the media is. We see that it's become socially acceptable to commit acts of violence and vandalism and spit in people's face.
As long as you hate Trump.
As long as you hate Trump, anything goes.
Yes.
Yeah. And people are sick of it. People and they don't want to live this way, and they shouldn't live this way. It's despicable. But I also wanted to encourage people on the right to use their voice, because this whole thing about the silent majority, that's got to stop. Because it's the fact that people have been so silent that's led us to this place. The complacency, which is the silence, is what has allowed this cancer on the left to grow out of control and to really take control and control the narrative. I want the silent majority to become unsilent. This is what I keep saying. So I want people on the right to do their video testimonials too. I had no idea how people would react. I didn't know. I just knew I was going to put my video testimonial out there. I was going to create this campaign encouraging other people to do the same.
Yep.
I didn't know if I would fall flat on my face and make a fool of myself and only 50 people would ever see my video.
How many people have viewed that video?
Well, it's been replicated and copied, but at this point, well over 10 million.
Wow.
Yeah, because
that's amazing.
My original copy, I believe, is going on 3 million views.
Wow.
But it's been replicated by other people. There's this person, a social media superstar. His name is Anomaly. He's now a friend of mine. We met in Los Angeles, and we talk on the phone. But he's got a huge social media presence. Once he replicated my video and put it out, his copies of my videos are 4 or 5 million. I'm sure I probably have 15 million views, actually.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider all the different people who've put it out.
Sure.
And
you know what? While we're talking about it, I definitely want to share with people your Twitter page, and people can follow you on Twitter. You're there at, what is it, the Twitter handle?
U.S. Minority.
The Unsilent Minority, the U.S. Minority, and people can link to your Facebook page,
right,
and learn all about the #WalkAway campaign. So that's really great. I mean, that's tremendous.
Let me say this, because this is something that hasn't been getting much attention lately when I've been doing interviews. I was talking about it a lot in the early interviews. If people go to Facebook and they type in #WalkAway campaign, I really need to encourage as many people as possible to join our group, the Facebook group. That's where all the testimonials are, and that's really what the campaign is about. The reason why I'm making it such a point to say this to you now is because there's begun to be a separation. As I've been kind of rising up and becoming a Fox News entity, and I'm becoming, people are seeing me on television, people are starting to forget about the campaign, and they're starting to focus on me.
I see.
I want people to get back focused on the campaign, because this is really about the people and the people's voice. I'm the face of the campaign, and I'm the voice. And
what do you mean they're focusing on you? How so?
Well, I'm becoming, I think, kind of a rising star in the conservative movement. I mean, I'm being booked on these TV shows and stuff all the time, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But what's starting to happen is people are saying, we're talking tonight to Brandon Straka, founder of the #WalkAway campaign. Brandon, let's talk about the issues in the news this week. Great, but let's also talk about the Walk Away campaign, because that's what it's all about. I mean, I don't ever want to. It's fine every once in a while for me to come on as a contributor and talk about the stories of the week. I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm so separated from the campaign that people forget about the people in America. That's what the campaign is really about. The Americans who haven't had a voice. So people need to hear their voice.
Right.
And the way for people to hear their voice is to go to Facebook, type in #WalkAway campaign, go to the group page, and join the group, and then you'll see thousands of testimonials of Americans of all walks of life. And I mean, truly, we have Black people, we have Muslims, we have Asians, we have white people, we have gay people, we have straight people, we have transgender people, we have drag queens. I mean, people are doing their testimonials at every walk of life. But what's so remarkable and so amazing is that not everyone in this group, see, this is what I always say too, this is important. Walk Away is a journey, it's not a destination. I'm trying to lead people away from the Democratic Party. I'm trying to lead people away from liberalism and groupthink, identity politics and political correctness. But I'm not telling people run to the Republican Party. That's what I did.
Got it.
And it didn't happen overnight, but I'm now a registered Republican. I'm now a proud Trump supporter.
How do you feel about how Trump is doing as president?
I love it. I think I am so proud of our president. I think he's doing an incredible job.
I'm with you.
There's nothing that I've seen to be afraid of. And I say that not just as any American citizen, but particularly in these minority groups that the liberal media and the Democratic Party loves to sink their claws into and say, you're in danger, you're in danger, you're in danger. No, we're really not. Everybody's doing really great right now, and nobody's in danger. I mean, the African American community is enjoying the highest employment rate they've ever seen. People are seeing more money in their paychecks, and the GDP is rising, and this is positive for everybody.
Yeah.
This is positive for everyone. You know, and it's time for us to stop seeing ourselves in these splintered groups and seeing ourselves as Americans. Yes, of course it's okay to see yourself as a black person. It's okay to see yourself as a gay person. It's not okay to see yourself only as a cog in a group that is oppressed and victimized. That's what the left wants you to believe over and over and over again. This is the message. They want you to keep telling people, stick with us because you're oppressed and your salvation can only be found through us. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. But I think he's doing an amazing job.
I agree with you. So you've been at this for maybe about 4 months. What's next?
That's not even true. It hasn't even been 3 months.
Wow.
This has all happened in, much of it happened within 2 months.
It's amazing.
Right, the hashtag Walk Away campaign, June, July, it hasn't even been 3 months. May 26th we rolled out.
It's tremendous what you've been able to do.
Thank you.
So do you think you'll become a political candidate for something, or where would you like this to take you?
Well, for me personally, I mean, at this point, everything that's happened to me in this past year, I just have to, I've learned that you can never say never, because I sure as hell would have told you 2 years ago I would never be a conservative, I would never be a Republican. I mean, and now I'm actually almost like a conservative Republican spokesperson, and an advocate for minority communities to take a look at the truth about the Democratic Party and consider joining us over here in the right, because the right is changing.
Yes.
I mean, and what's so brilliant about the way that it's changing is we're really extracting the individuals from these groups and getting them to see that that personal empowerment, again, here we go about accountability. Personal empowerment lies within each individual. I mean, we live in a country where you can really be anything you want to be. You can create the life for yourself. Look what Oprah Winfrey did. She came from nothing, and look at you know, it can happen. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to me. It can happen to anyone. But it can't ever happen if you're going to see yourself as just one member of a larger group that's victimized and oppressed. So we have to get we have to get African Americans, we have to get gay people, we have to get Hispanic people, Muslims, Asians, to stop seeing themselves as a victimized class of people and that they have to stick up with the Democrats over the left, see themselves as empowered individuals and come join us on the right. Because the truth is, people on the right want this type of diversity. They don't want to be this homogenized just group of white people, straight people. But what they don't want is the identity to politics and the victimhood. We don't want to just leave these people out of there and over here and have the same problem on the right.
Wow.
I want to see all of these minorities come, but see themselves as individuals. I am a black American. I am a gay American. And see the empowerment that we all have within ourselves to live whatever life you want to in this country. Come over here and join us, but leave the identity, politics, and the political correctness behind. So I never say never, because I sure as hell never would have seen myself where I am right now today and seen myself in this position. Will I ever run for office? Perhaps. Today,
I think you
no.
should consider it, man. You're a remarkably inspiring guy.
Thank you. I think that I could be of more influence. I see myself primarily as an artist and a creative person. And I believe that my influence and my personal input, the way that I could reach people most effectively would be in some sort of creative or artistic front. Or I could even see myself perhaps hosting a talk show, but I really see myself as a creative person and having kind of creative reach and getting this message across in that format. I don't really see myself in a suit and tie on Capitol Hill, citing policy, but never say never.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, Brandon, I have to say, man, it's been really, really excellent speaking with you. Give us just a minute. We'll
I'm so sorry.
Right with you. But with that, I think we'll wrap it up. We'll go have a word with that guy, perhaps. I want to thank you for joining me, Brandon. Oh, sorry, I just hit the audio cable. Brandon Straka from the hashtag Walk Away movement. Thank you so much for speaking with me, Brandon.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you with everything.
Thank you.
And I hope we'll see you back on Crowdsource the Truth.
Absolutely. Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Please go to Facebook, #WalkAwayCampaign, join the group page, and take a look at the testimonials of real Americans who are walking away from the Democratic Party and from Americans on the right who are taking their voice back. The silent majority is becoming unsilent. Please take a look and please join it and make your own video as well.
Absolutely. Brandon, thank you so much, man. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Take care.
Awesome.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.